stages of is thinking about if you are a teacher in one of these content areas, English, math, science, history, world language, how did these 17 areas apply to you? And actually, this was just a conversation I was having at my school today about computer science. We're thinking about computer science being 2 years down the road, and there's a lot of talk about, well, we're going to meet that by developing a new class, the computer science class. But actually, you know, what about the AP Gov class talking about the fact that municipal services are now, a lot of them you can do through an app. A lot of cities have apps that, you know, you can find parking or pay a bill or any sort of service. Like computer science doesn't belong in its own silo. It can be, it should be contextualized. And same idea here, these 17 areas should be contextualized. So the idea here is that, you know, there'll be 85 lesson ideas, and here's just a few. So thinking about English, if you're an English teacher, thinking about artificial intelligence, how does that apply to me? Perhaps look at an AI essay writer like Easy Essay Bot and compare the output to a human composed essay on the same topic. Can you tell the difference? What are the particular strengths of the AI and what are the strengths of a human generated essay? Can debate, is an essay written by AI plagiarism? I'd like to debate that actually. Science and positive behavior. Thinking about looking at online communities that build up around misunderstanding or distrust of certain scientific concepts, like in the anti-vaxxer online communities. How do members of these groups respond to scientific evidence, and kind of like trace how members are communicating with each other, what counts for reliable evidence within this community, how do members interact with each other to reinforce misunderstanding of the science. And then here's another, world language and privacy and reputation. Study the internet privacy laws of the target culture, like GDPR and the right to be forgotten laws passed by the EU, and trace cultural differences in how concepts such as privacy are thought about across cultures. What are other cultural beliefs and practices, or what other cultural beliefs and practices inform or interact with ideas about privacy? So the idea here is that these aren't topics just for certain people, or not topics just for certain teachers. It really, I mean, we all live in a digitally connected world, so all of these topics truly do relate to what we do. So I am, I keep talking about the class I taught in the past tense. That's because a couple of months ago, I have moved to a new position to a high school in Foxborough, Massachusetts, as the tech integration specialist there. And it kind of was a good time to just sort of like reflect and think about this need for the contextualization of this work. So in my new position, I don't teach my own class. I 100% I'm supporting other teachers at my school. Although I have turned some of my 8th grade curriculum into I'm in the middle of doing this with my librarian. So the librarian and I have really quickly connected and joined forces. And she was looking to, like the kids take study hall, and a lot of the time it's just looking at your phone. So she was thinking about, can she do some direct instruction there for, in terms of like information literacy or just digital skills. And so I came to the school just as she was thinking about that. So we've joined forces and we're doing a 5-lesson sequence where we talk about how Google works and really algorithmic literacy. Today we had a debate where students were debating, does the Google search algorithm result in censorship? and that was a very heated debate. And it was a really big experiment. Like, we didn't know, will these freshmen really resent the fact that we were taking them away from their study hall? But actually they've been very engaged. So it's really cool. So so I'm able to think about how to sort of insert this stuff into the school in my new position. So as I'm starting this new position, I felt like a good time to continue with the graduate certificate in digital literacy, which is something that I wanted to continue doing since 2016 when I went to the Summer Institute for the first time. So I'm currently about a week away, no, 5 days away from turning in my final for the digital authorship class with Dr. Hobbs. And it's just been the perfect timing for me as I reassess. So as I'm putting together my final project, I'm thinking about an implementation plan, like a PD. I guess I would call it a PD implementation plan, although it's not just PD, it's really thinking about how to thoughtfully, how to strategically do work with other teachers at my school and really amplify digital literacy as a shared responsibility for everybody, harkening back to this idea that every teacher is a digital literacy teacher. So a few things that I'm thinking about in developing this final product. Thinking not just about digital literacies, but developing digital problem solving skills. And I think this is important for kids and for adults. I think that sometimes when we don't know how to use a technology to the degree that we would feel most comfortable, that can feel overwhelming. And when I'm working with colleagues and they're not sure how to do something, I'll often say, like, let's not even think about the technology. Like, what are you trying to do? And it's really that problem solving process that's even more important than knowing how to use a specific tool. So I'm finding in the literature, there's actually there's protocol and there's like a process that I can tap into and thinking about. It's not just developing digital literacies, it's developing a digital problem solving habit. And this is also something I've been thinking a lot about. This is from this article written by Hobbs and Tuzel. Awareness of teacher motivations for digital learning could be an asset in the design and development of professional development programs. I think that, getting back to something I mentioned earlier, that it really need to tap into the greater pedagogical or curricular goals that a teacher has. And I've, in developing relationships with my new colleagues, I'm understanding that even more so, because at the same time that I'm just getting to know someone, I'm also trying to get to know their teaching practice and maybe a pain point that I can help them with, while also getting to this greater goal of, we want to make sure that our kids leave our school ready for career and college and life, and just empowered users of technology. And the digital horoscopes, or the digital motivation horoscopes that that's part of the Summer Institute, thinking about, can I, in an August PD at the beginning of the year, can I get my colleagues to take that quiz so I can really get an understanding of what people's motivations are and tap into that. And I'm inspired to think more about that and push for that, because I think it would be really helpful and interesting. And finally, really what I find so exciting, but also so difficult in this work as a tech integration specialist working with other faculty, is doing this work, it's impacting teacher knowledge and belief. So there's knowledge about how to use a tool, the confidence that comes with that, or, you know, the knowledge of like, what's an algorithm? You can't really teach algorithmic literacy if you're not really, if you're just not really sure what the word algorithm means. So there's definitely a level of knowledge building that's necessary, but it's also belief. It's belief that this is worthwhile work, that it's your job as, you know, a history teacher to be concerned about your students' digital literacy skills. Yeah, this idea that this is like a shared task, and even belief that screens should be in school at all. I mean, I've definitely uh, encountered that some people just some really thoughtful people who really care just don't even think that we should be adding to kids' screen time at school. Um, so, you know, there's a lot there. That's, it's hard. I'm not sure that I figured it out. But I guess I have sort of this theory that I'm working with, that it's kind of, it's like I kind of want to prove it. I want to prove it to my colleagues by, you know, getting kids creating stuff that maybe people never didn't think possible at the school, or prove that, you know, these digital citizenship 17 areas really are truly connected to your content area. So it's a challenge, but I'm excited to go to the Summer Institute this summer to gain some more skills, some more understanding, and then reflect on that. The big goal for this final is to set up for an action research project I'll collect data on the efficacy of some of the things that I'm going to try out, and try to share that in a way that might help others doing similar work. So that's actually all the slides I have. And
Wow.
that's me. That's my email and my Twitter.
Very cool. Thank you, Michelle.
Yeah.
I was writing down questions as you were going, and you kept on answering my questions as you were going, so you did a great job.
Okay, good.
One of the questions I guess we can talk about is how it's particularly the T4L2 program, and even your work in the high schools. How was that received by the students? Did you find that students were very good at this stuff, or, you know, we have this concept of the digital native, so these kids should know all these things already, or did you find them to be lost, or was it over their heads as especially maybe a sixth grader doing these things?
Yeah, it's very varied, I would say. Especially where I was working in that middle school is in Metro West suburbs of Boston, which is kind of where a lot of tech companies are located. So there were some kids in my class whose parents worked in those tech companies, and clearly they were coming with certain experiences. But then, you know, the other half, not at all. And there's definitely, I don't know what it is, but there's something, there's a confidence gap along gender lines for sure. Like, I'd have girls say to me, they're not good at technology. And it's really, really sad. I don't know how at 11, like I don't know how that's so ingrained in your brain. Especially when, you know, I know that you're using your phone to connect with people, to share stuff you're creating, content you're generating. So, I mean, there's certainly, it's certainly mixed, but in terms of receptivity, because also, you know, some of the kids that do come with some prior experience, you know, would say like, well, I already know how to do this. I don't need to learn this. But that everyone learns from everyone mantra really came in handy then, because, you know, well, now you can help your classmates. But I think it really, I think that good like project design helps with some of this stuff, which is why my 7th grade curriculum, I think, really met the needs of both parallel populations. So there were the more techie kids could go like way ahead in App Lab and create an app prototype that was really pretty sophisticated.
Wow.
Then others who don't have that experience, most have experience like using an app or just like communicating with people online. So that drew in some of the like, some of the kids that maybe were more motivated by like social goals. So it was a good project to try to meet a lot of kids where they were at.
Michelle, can I comment on that? A really interesting observation. You just said that basically what you saw in the students was kind of a gap, a skills gap or a competence gap between the kids who kind of just didn't feel digital stuff was their thing, and then real aficionados. I'm observing that same gap when I'm teaching teachers. That there's a whole group of teachers who are like, this is not my thing. And then there's people who are really into it. And is this a gap that should concern us, or is it something you're kind of not that worried about?
That's a good question. I mean, I feel like I feel, that's a good question. I guess like I feel confident that I can, meet kids where they're at. And I think you, Dr. Hobbs, like you certainly know how to meet people where they're at. I don't think that kind of approach to like a tech literacy education is widespread, unfortunately. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I think that the confidence gap really, I don't know. And when I like think of, when I think about fellow teachers, it's not even like a generational thing. Like I think that some young teachers don't always feel confident in utilizing digital tools. I don't know. I think that, I think it's definitely something that can be treated or like worked with, but it's just it needs to be seen as something that is worthy of devoting time to, like a digital literacy PLC or something. Like there needs to be, I think, within schools, I think that there needs to be some devotion of resources or time to it. But yeah, you have to convince people that that's worthy or that's important.
If anybody else has any questions, feel free to chime in here live, or if you want to type it in the chat. While you're doing that, I just wanted to let you guys know I put in some links for some of the things that Michelle was talking about. Video Ant, if you've never used that, it's basically a video annotator, which is really cool. So people can kind of annotate videos such as on YouTube. Pretty much in real time, which is a really cool tool to use, and something we learned how to use in the Summer Institute. And then she also mentioned the Set Your Motivation survey, which is also ran through the Media Education Lab, and I provided a link for that. And that is also a really cool tool just to get, like you were talking about in the PD session, getting the conversation started as to why individuals think it's important, because I think we all come to it from a different perspective.
Absolutely.
So definitely check out those sites.
Michelle, one of the reasons why I'm really glad you're wrestling with some of these challenges is that, so here I am in Germany. I've been in Germany for the last week, and
you're still there.
I am, and I'm going to be back tomorrow. So finally I'll get on to East Coast time. Right. But, one of the things I'm definitely noticing here in Europe is there are some very thoughtful teachers who have kind of consciously opted out of doing digital stuff. And you acknowledged that in your talk, and I wonder. I actually have a lot of respect for teachers who have carefully, it's who aren't just reacting in a knee-jerk way out of fear, but who are kind of strategically saying, no, I'm not going to be using these tools, and here's my explicit reasons. The trick is that strategy can also be pretty confusing for learners too, right? Which is why are we using these tools in blah blah blah's class, but not in the other class? And I wonder, what are your thoughts around, should teachers be more transparent about their reasoning to students about their use of digital technologies in learning? Or is it important for students to know our philosophies, or would that be just self-indulgent?
No, I do think so. I run into this in terms of like phone use in the classroom, and I think there's a lot of frustration from teachers that kids are. So in my middle school, there was a no phone policy, and so that made it easier. Like, you can't take out your phone for any reason, so like just leave it in your bag. At my current school, we're sort of BYOD, but it kind of depends on the teacher, and it depends on the type of activity that is happening in class that day. And I think the frustration comes when you aren't transparent with your students about why today they can't use their phone. I think that kids understand, and they're understanding about the fact that sometimes a screen does get in the way. Sometimes, whether that's because it's personally distracting to you, or it's distracting to others, or there's just no need for it in that day's lesson. And I think that I think that in my experience, if you take the time to explain or make the connection why the learning task does not necessitate the use of a screen, I think that kids get it, and I think they benefit, and I think they're thankful for it. I mean, I think it's tough. I don't know how I feel about just 100% opting out, because then it becomes someone else's sole responsibility, and like another teacher in school, and I don't think that's fair. And I don't think that's authentic. Like, I think that no matter what field you go into, whatever content you're grappling with, there's gonna be a need for a digital tool. Like, I don't know what reality that's setting a student up for at this point.
Right. I really very much appreciate your reflecting on this. I do think that one of the things I wonder about is, okay, so in your current job, since your job is to teach teachers, and you are claiming right here in this session, every teacher is a digital literacy teacher, will you be eventually assessed on how many teachers in your community take this up? And is that something you're looking forward to, planning for, or freaked out about?
That's a great question. And that's something that I'm grappling with. Like, what is my goal? Do I have metrics that I'm going to measure my work against? I hope not. I hope the goal isn't that there's kind of like a cookie cutter use of tech in the classroom. I don't think that serves anybody that well. But I guess like I would measure success by teachers are able to decide, make an informed decision about the use of technology in their lesson. So not based on a lack of confidence or a lack of skill, or just like a lack of knowing what the possibilities are, but if that's an informed decision that you're making day to day or unit to unit or whatever it is, then to me that's the goal. So I hope but I don't know, it's tough working in ed tech because the people, there's people who can get really distracted by a bright shiny object, and then all of a sudden the like strategy that you've been working on gets kind of like pushed to the side because someone's worried about what's not happening, and this like need to like accelerate whatever ed tech is in the classroom. So it is a pretty it feels like a precarious position sometimes, and I don't know, this position I think is like fairly, it's still being sorted out, I guess. And I find that district to district, even school to school, the role is defined slightly differently. And so maybe it's growing pains, but I think it's something that a learning community has to come together and decide, like, what is our digital literacy strategy, or like however you define, or whatever word you want to use for that.
Wow, thank you for sharing that. Oh yeah, Alex.
Yeah, I was just wondering, how did you come about getting the job as a technology integrationist? How did it come about?
That's a good question, because I remember Carrie 2 weeks ago, she went from librarian to tech integration, which I think is a pretty common path.
Yeah.
But I don't know, to be honest. Like, I'm not even really a techie. Like, it's not even like in my personal life I'm like cutting edge or anything. But I guess it really comes down to just this original desire to include popular culture in the classroom, and just meeting kids where they're at and using that as a lever for engagement. And the cool thing about tech integration is it really can go in like so many different directions. And I love that as a tech integrationist, I can pull in media literacy and algorithmic literacy and computer science and data literacy with teachers and students. Like, it's such like a catch-all for like anything that you'd be interested in doing. So I guess it just felt really flexible to me, and like I could really touch a lot of different areas. I feel really lucky. I feel like I just kind of stumbled into this path, but I think that you can come to this position with a lot of different skill sets and a lot of different motivations and be really happy. And like a part of me was really worried about moving to my new position and not having my own classroom, but I'm finding that, and I still some days think like, did I make a mistake by stepping out of the classroom, like my own classroom? But I'm finding that I really can make connections with kids by working with teachers and then coming into class to help their teacher to implement something new. So there's definitely opportunity for that connection. So if anyone's like a classroom teacher and thinking, would I still meet that need? You certainly can.
Very cool.
And it does seem like that this job opportunity gives you a big picture perspective on how teachers learn best, right?
Yes.
So I do feel like in some ways the experience that you're having is going to set you really well up for, continuing your leadership and professional development, because every opportunity you have to engage with a teacher on this builds your awareness of like how different teachers need different kinds of support. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it builds your empathy, that's for sure, because there's real concerns at the root of why someone is or is not doing something. And it's hard sometimes. It's like I saw this on Twitter, like the tech integrationist, it's like a tech therapist, and I do feel like that sometimes. Like therapy, yeah.
Oh, that's intriguing.
Yeah.
Yes.
So trying to connect like two different things that you said. So your own work, but also I'm very intrigued by your criticism. I had a whole discussion with Meg a month ago about digital citizenship. Both of
Mm.
us were like saying we need to write about that. So your struggle to do the empathy with the teachers that you're working with the trend of digital citizenship, like with the students and the pressure from parents and administration to put digital citizenship when it's really not what it should be. So how, if you can share a little bit of the struggles, I don't know if you have some answers, but kind of like what you and your position where you're at, like in between all this thing between the kids who's saying I'm not tech savvy but texting all the
Mhm.
time, the parents who want you to do anti-cyberbullying kind of thing, and the principal who wants you to work with the teachers.
Yeah, it's a lot. Um, I I guess yeah, and it's funny because when I talk about like ethics, it's often interpreted as like morality, and like I say I want to talk about tech ethics, and then they talk about, and so then the response is, yeah, like kids being mean to each other, and like that's not ethic, that's not like an ethical conversation. But um I find that when I would talk to my 8th graders about cookies and data collection, that's when they wanted to read the privacy policies or terms of service of websites. So I think that isn't, I think that the things that those in the digital citizenship world care about, I also care about, but I just go about it a different way, I guess. Um, and I've gotten like that's like real experience that I've had to get kids interested in that sort of thing. Like thinking about Snapchat, when you use Snapchat, it's you allow the app to go into your contact list and collect information about your contacts that may not even have Snapchat. And kids get concerned about that, and they want to preserve the privacy of their contacts, which is, you know, what a digital citizenship curriculum is all about. And you know, another example is, you know, we want kids to have positive conversations with each other online, but out of fear that that's not going to happen, that kids are going to be mean, we kind of like often will um, uh, like cut off access. But instead, in my 8th grade class, I would have kids practicing having digital conversations via Padlet about a controversial topic, like to connect it to curriculum. So like, do robots deserve rights? Um, and you know, kids would make mistakes. Some kids would post a silly meme or make a joke, but there was always this like amazing moment when the rest of the kids in the class would turn to that kid who was becoming a troll and saying, hey, can you stay on topic? And I just would always think like that student is probably going home and, you know, gaming with their friends and like being silly and off topic. And, you know, I'm not saying that because they practice having a digital conversation in my class, they're never going to do that. But that sort of face-to-face feedback in the classroom is so potentially powerful. And so, you know, again, I care about that, but instead of focusing on don't cyberbully, I think give them an opportunity to practice, give them an opportunity to make a mistake in a safe classroom environment. And then to me, that experience will, you'll get more bang for your buck from that experience.
Yeah, thanks. That's, yep.
Yeah, it's something that I care a lot about, because I think that there's so much momentum behind digital citizenship initiatives, and I just think it's not the best use of anyone's time.
Yeah, that was a really great example of how, you know, the kid being a troll was addressed through in the context of an actual engagement. So much more powerful to have the learning experience happen that way than in a, stand up and lecture kind of point fingers and say don't troll bullshit lesson, right? Which nobody pays attention to, and like does sound like moralizing. Whereas kids actually having a robust controversial discussion and seeing how going off topic can derail the discussion, and how, and seeing that and getting feedback about that, that's going to have an impact on kids' actual behavior and the choices they make. So learning like that in context is so much more powerful. But yeah, again, it involves really great design, and that's what's been so beautiful about seeing the very skillful and elegant design sensibilities that you bring to this work, Michelle. I think it's exciting. It's neat to think that you're going to tackle it as a teacher action researcher in the years ahead, and that's exciting. So this was really a marvelous session. I think I learned a lot.
Cool. Well, thanks for joining from Germany.
My pleasure. Hey, listen, Alex, what's happening next?
What's next? Thank you
what's the next program going to be about?
Well, we have 2 coming up within the next couple of weeks. Next Monday will actually be a 2 p.m. session called Civic Media Beyond Boundaries. We're going to be talking, actually, Yanti will be hosting these next 2. And in this one, we'll be talking to 5 examples of youth-produced civic media to talk about how those programs foster tolerance, empathy, and social change. We have a great panel of people to talk to, and that is May 13th at 2 p.m. And then on May 20th at 7 p.m., Jason Schrantz will be talking to us about using media production to investigate culture at the Rural Community College. So we'll see this from a lot of different perspectives, both in and out of schools and in different grade levels. So I'd like to thank Michelle for coming out and teaching us a little bit here. Definitely a topic that you see a lot of in the Summer Institute of Digital Literacy. I can speak for it myself. I went to the Summer Institute trying to find ways to help my class, and which was an English digital composition class. And what I came away with is just understanding how it really is all teachers' responsibility to kind of teach these digital literacy things, because it's just the way the future is going, and it's on all of us to help out in that cause. So thank you all for joining. In the chat, I put a link to Michelle's Google site, so you can check out that work and any links that she provided in the slides. So thank you again, Michelle. Thank you all for coming, and have a good evening.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye. Thanks, Alex.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, yeah.
Thank you for hosting, Alex. I really appreciate it.